Hello and welcome back to our course. Okay, in today's video, we are going to talk about administration. So buy sheet, everything admin, everything you need to know just to keep you on track with all your admin. So let's get started. Okay, so cute little doggy. But my point of this point in the slide is that you need to make sure you keep evidence of everywhere you buy your products from. And it's really important to be careful where you're buying your products from, but we'll cover that a little bit later in a different module. So when you buy your products from Argos or Tesco's or Walmart or wherever you buy them from, make sure you ask for a formal invoice. So in the UK, you're asking for a VAT invoice, but make sure you ask for a formal invoice and don't just have an email confirmation receipt. If you're doing RA, then obviously, you're not going to get that because your tax information is usually included on your till receipt. So they're not going to give you a different sort of invoice. So if you're doing online arbitrage, get the most formal sort of invoice you can. And it may well mean that for every purchase, you have to get hold of the retail store and ask them to send you a formal invoice. But it's really worth doing that to help protect your account. So that's the first thing to say. If you're doing RA, then make sure when you get home, you scan in all your receipts into your computer or take photos of them and make sure they're really good photos and really clear. Because, those till receipts lose their ink over time and they become faded. And, giving Amazon, if they ask for proof of where you've been buying your products, which is, it's not common, but it's not rare at all. I work in suspension, so there's a lot of it I see. But the chances are someone's going, most people are going to come up against this at some point in their Amazon business, in their career as their Amazon business. So it's really worth making sure you make that extra effort, because giving them a half-eaten till receipt that isn't professional is not going to save your account, and you're literally going to be relying on these to save your account. So it's really important that you do that and, give yourself the best chance that you can. So whilst the doggy is really cute and lovely, Amazon aren't going to approve or aren't going to appreciate receiving an invoice that's half eaten by the dog. So make sure you're professional with looking after your invoices and your receipts. So make sure you keep all your records in order, because it's much, much easier to keep your records in order as you go than it is to try and catch up once a year. Trying to catch up once a year is a nightmare. It's almost impossible for online and retail arbitrage. You're going to lose where you are completely. So make sure you keep your records up to date in a regular thing, a regular basis, and make sure you're paying attention to all costings, because it's really important. I see so many sellers, I say certainly before Pro was around, so many sellers selling for prices that, especially if I've known where they bought their stock from, well, I know they're making a loss, and they don't see that they're making a loss, and someone more experienced needs to talk them through it and help them explain and help them understand where they're making a loss, because you've got that extra 20% that Amazon don't tell you about for non-VAT registered people in the UK on the fees. You've got to think about, you've got to get the product from the retailer to your prep centre or to you. You've got to pay for that. You've got to pay to ship the product from the prep centre or from your house to Amazon. These are all extra little costs, and not everyone takes all of these into account. So make sure you are looking at all your costings, because being successful in arbitrage is about paying attention to the detail. That can make or break your business. So make sure you're doing a really good job paying attention to those costings. So we're going to talk about ungating and auto-ungatings, but we're going to cover those in the later module. And we're going to go into quite a lot of detail of how to keep your account safe and such like, but we're also going to cover that in a later module. But just so you know, they're coming. So tax, first of all, I'm not an accountant. I'm going to talk you through what I think my understanding of it is from a UK point of view. From a US point of view, I don't know. So you just need to take professional advice. But even if you're in the UK, although I'm going to share what my thoughts are about it, I'm not an accountant. I'm not qualified to give you professional advice. So please make sure you get yourself some decent advice. But my understanding is straight away, almost straight away, I think you have about 3 months if you've done a limited company or something like that, but you need to, or even if you're doing self-employed, like a sole trader, but I think you need to straight away, you need to put yourself in a position where you've registered for your tax. So you know you're not going to have the tax man coming and knocking on your door saying, we understand you're selling on Amazon and you don't have any, you've not declared it. So you don't want to get yourself in that situation. It's a nasty situation to be in. So make sure you register for your tax. Now, you've probably already done this and you've probably already decided, otherwise you wouldn't have this course, you've probably already set up your Amazon account. And therefore you've set it up as a limited company or as a sole trader. Now, there's nothing wrong with either. They're different, but there's nothing wrong with either. And the main things to remember, I think, certainly with a sole trader, is your business tax and your personal tax are all combined. It's all put together in one go. With a limited company, it's a totally separate entity. So it's dealt with completely separately. It has different tax rules and everything else. Now, most people tend to start as a sole trader, and most people then tend to move on to have a limited company. And you can do that changeover between your accounts. So you can move from sole trader to limited company with Amazon. Be really careful if that's something you're going to do for a few reasons. First of all, don't do it too early after starting your account. If you've started as a sole trader, you need to continue as a sole trader for at least 6 months, I would say. 4 to 6 months at least, because Amazon are likely to otherwise, if you approach them and say, I want to swap my legal entity, changing from a sole trader to a limited company in Amazon's eyes is a really serious thing to do. You're changing your legal entity. It's not something they do lightly. So, and they are very likely, if you haven't had your account long enough, to tell you that you're going to have to close your account and open a new one. So you really don't want to do that, because you'll lose the benefit of having a slightly older account. You'll lose the benefit of any ungating that you've already done or anything like that. So you'd lose all those benefits. So you really don't want to do that. If you've gone down the road, my advice would be, if you've gone down the road of starting out as a sole trader, then see that through for at least 4 to 6 months before you think about changing to a limited company. Now, the benefits of changing to a limited company are that, if you sell something as a sole trader and it damages somebody in some way, they can sue you. So potentially some people have insurance in place for arbitrage. Not everybody does, but some people have insurance in place. That's something you could think about whether you want to do. Certainly for a big seller, I think it's probably quite important, but then you move to a limited company structure. So, it's swings and roundabouts a little bit, because if you get sued as a sole trader, they'll sue you and they can come after your house and your personal things because it's you. Whereas if you've got a limited company, there's a barrier between you and your stuff, and they can only sue your limited company. They can't sue you. So that's a nice part of having a limited company for sure. But as I say, there's downsides as well in terms of tax, and there's lots of different things. Personally, I prefer a limited company structure, but that's what suits me and my business best. And you have to work out with your accountant what suits you and your business. But as I say, most people start as a sole trader and then they change after a few months or a year, or maybe not even for a few years. Some people like to stay a sole trader forever. There's no right or wrong. Both are perfectly adequate ways of paying your tax and making sure you stay legal, but they're just different ways. So you need to work out with a professional what works best for you longer term. So keep an eye on your VAT status. Now, this is for UK people. So in the UK, once you hit a certain level, I think at the moment it's about 85,000, but that changes with every budget. So, but it's that sort of round figure. When you hit that level, you have to start paying VAT on your sales. So you need to give a lot of thought to how that will affect your business, because typically someone that is VAT registered in arbitrage will be worse off than someone that is not VAT registered. So you're better off at the beginning when you're not VAT registered. Now, it works. My understanding of how it works out is when you buy a product, we all pay tax on it. So we've all paid VAT when we buy a product from Argos, let's say. And if you are not VAT registered, then you also have to pay tax on Amazon's fees. But when you sell that product, all of that profit is yours. Now, if you are VAT registered, you can claim back the VAT that you paid for the product. you can claim back the VAT that Amazon charge you on your fees, but you have to pay VAT on the cost of the product. Now, as I say, I'm not an accountant, but that's in layman terms how I understand it. And you're always going to be a little bit worse off because obviously the VAT, the most expensive thing is the cost of the product when you're selling it, because obviously you're selling it for a profit. So that 20% is the highest proportion of the amount to make the tax. So I hope that makes sense. But just take my word for it. You're slightly worse off doing arbitrage as a VAT registered seller. So people deal with that differently. Some people choose to stay under the threshold so that they don't ever meet that threshold. I don't agree with that necessarily. I think if that's as far as you can go because that's where your finances take you, or that's because it's as far as you want to take the business, that's a different thing. I personally wouldn't hold my business back for VAT. It's just part of life. You just got to get on with it and make it work anyway. So, but that's not something you have to worry about now, but it's just something you need to be aware of. And VAT is looked at based on your turnover. So it's looked at in terms of all your sales. So, think about that in terms of when it becomes right. But it's something that you're not going to have to think about for probably a year or so. But it's just something to bear in mind that if you approach that status, you need to give some thought to how you're going to change your business or run your business or change your strategies at that time. As I've already mentioned before, potentially 20% of VAT on the fees that Amazon charge you if you're not using BuyBot Pro. If you're using BuyBot Pro, it works it all out for you right at the beginning, so you know where you stand. But if you're not using BuyBot Pro, do remember that. Okay, so you need to give yourself a buy sheet. So this is a typical buy sheet of what you could do. I've just set this up in Google Drive, on Google Sheets. And this is basically what you want, the information that you want to make sure that you keep. So you want the date, you've got the product, the title, the category, the sales rank, the BSR percentage. Now, obviously the sales rank and BSR are the same things. One's in a number form and one's in a percentage form. So they're both telling you how quickly the product sells. Your source price, your source URL, your Amazon price, your Amazon URL. You want to know what your Amazon fees are. You want to know your profit, your ROI. You probably want to know how many FBA and how many MF sellers there were when you bought the product. You'll probably want the ASIN, what you sold it for, and the date that you sold it. So that's a very, very basic buy sheet. In the files section of the Secret Wealth Project Facebook group, there is a buy sheet in there as well. So that's something that you need to keep, because you need to be keeping a record of what you're doing and how you're selling it. And you need to make sure you know what your costs are before you think about how you can reprice a product. But we'll cover that a bit later. So that's basically your buy sheet and what it could look like. So if you are using BuyBot Pro, BuyBot Pro will automatically fill out your buy sheet for you. If you're not using BuyBot Pro, you'll need to add all that information in manually every time you buy a deal. If you're using BuyBot Pro to sort out your deal sheet, you can click on customize there. So you set up your deal sheet with your headings to start with, how you want it all set out. You go into there, into customize, and you can see that you've got all the columns. So you can make the columns match. So if you want the first one to be ASIN rather than date, you can just change the columns in the customize button there. So you can change it all in there. And then you add your Google Sheets ID here. And at the front of the bot, you can even add your source URL if you want to include that in there and export that automatically. And then on the front, you just click a little button. It says copy to my buy sheet. And then it will fill it all in for you. Say if you're doing it all manually. But whether you're doing it with BuyBot Pro and have it all automated for you, or if you're doing it manually and need to do it all yourself, you need to get it done. So you just need to make sure that you have all the information you need to make sure you're keeping your records properly. Okay, so that's basically the end of the admin that I wanted to talk you through, and I'll see you in the next video.